Hi, Tim with Meyer Sewing. Today we're going to talk to you about your new Acclaim RevolutionAir Serger. We're going to go over some of the parts of the machine, the accessories that came with the machine, the instruction manual and such. So let's start off with the thread pole or the thread antenna. When you got it out of the box, the thread stand or antenna was down. What you want to do is you want to fully pull that all the way to the top. The next thing we're going to talk about are cone adapters. These cone adapters will go with the larger cones, such as the Maxi Lock type thread or cone thread. If we want to use a regular spool thread, then we want to remove the cone adapter, put your spool on, and then you would put that adapter on to the top of the thread. Today we're going to work with the thread cones. All right. As we go along the machine, let's get it lined up here. One little hidden gem is this accessory toolbox right here. And what you do is you lift under and slide open, and you'll have access to all your accessories inside here. Now, not all the accessories are in that box because you got a clear little plastic container, and you've got some accessories in that as well. Close the box. Let's talk a little bit about the parts of the machine. Okay, your machine came with the instruction booklet as well. We're going to go through some of this. But the quick reference threading guide is what I really like. And it has some great information. We're going to talk about the yellow box that follows all the different types of stitches you can create. Right there is the thread box we're referring to, and it talks about needles, length of stitch, width of stitch, stitch selector, and or wave selector. This is coherent with all the other different stitch types on both sides of the page here. And what I'm going to do now is talk about needles. And in this particular, let's go back to 4 thread, which would be right here. I'll take that little tab off, for example. And the needles, it says left and right. Well, what that means is we're going to be using the left and right needle for this particular overlock stitch, which is a 4-thread overlock stitch. The length says it's 2.5 to 3.5. The length of the stitch is this lower, larger dial on the inside of the machine in the front. There are the indicators on top, and you can adjust this from anywhere from 0 up to 4. So it's talking about 2.5 to 3.5. I typically set it on about number 3, which is right here. You'll also notice that it does say standard. That is for regular overlocking, and we're going to talk later about the rolled hem setting. But this is our stitch length. Now we're going to talk about the width of the stitch. It says 6.0 to 7.5. The smaller knob above the stitch length is our stitch width knob. 6.0, there's a reading here, 6 to 7.5. So you simply turn it in that range, whatever you prefer. M will stand for medium or in the middle. The next one we're going to talk about is the stitch selector. It has the selector A, and this is our stitch selector, which you can see it goes from A, B, C, and D. So we're going to leave it on selector A. The wave selector talks about overlock or wave, and in this case, we want it in the overlock setting. So you do not want it up in the wave stitch, you want it down in the overlock. So by understanding this chart here, the yellow box, this is going to get your machine set up properly for the type of stitch you're going to do. We're going to talk about 4-thread and 3-thread type stitches, okay? So let's start. Let's continue on with our other parts of the machine. And the first part I want to talk about is this door where there's an indentation here. You just pull that down and that opens this door and cover. If we need to open the knife cover, you simply go to the right and bring it down, and that opens the knife cover, accessing here. What's really cool is on the inside of the first cover we brought down, it has the threading chart. And it talks about needle threading and also looper threading. It tells you exactly what to do, but the first thing we do in threading is, number one, we raise the presser foot. And I just want to mention this presser foot is located on the right-hand side of the machine above the hand wheel. Unlike your sewing machine, for example, may be in the back or on the inside. It's convenient. So the first thing we do is raise the presser foot lever up to the up position. The second thing we do is engage the threading lever. This is the threading lever right here. And it talks about serging and it talks about threading. If you lower the lever, it will go into the threading situation. And the next part, step 3, is turn the hand wheel to engage the threading tubes. Down in here, we're going to watch, and as it comes along here, the tubes will engage. So this is going to allow the air to go through the tubes to thread the machine. Step number 4, it talks about inserting 1 inch of thread into the threading port. But before we get to this point, we need to put the thread and go through a couple other steps, okay? And what I've chosen today are a multitude of colors of thread. You don't have to do this on your machine, but what I have learned for so many years is if you do multicolor thread, then you'll start to distinguish or see in the stitch what part of the machine is making the stitch, such as the lower looper, the upper looper, and we're going to talk about those as well. So we're just going to let's grab the teal here, put the thread on the spool. We're going to bring it up and over the top, right like so it catches in here. Our next thread guide will be back of the machine, and I always refer to this as kind of flossing your teeth. You're going to take the thread straight down, and you'll hear a click, and it will then go into where it needs to go into. Lay the thread in the track, and right here there's a little hook. If we go back behind, it will catch itself right here. All right. All right. Now at this point, I usually just trim the thread, and we put about 1 inch or so of thread in the L port. The L stands for lower looper, and I also pull some slack. So if I put some in there, I usually roll it in with my finger. And then when I push to thread loopers button, then it threads the machine for us, which is pretty cool. What I do next with this thread is I go under the presser foot and over the cutting knife, and that seems to get it out of the way. So under the foot and over the knife, and now that is where we need it to be. Okay, we just finished threading the lower looper. So let's take our spool of thread, put it on the upper looper spool pin, and we're going to thread the upper looper now. So we're going to go over the top, down in. Again, floss the thread straight down, through the thread guide, back behind. I cut and trim the thread at this point, insert about 1 inch of thread into the upper looper port, hold the thread, pull some slack, and press the push to thread looper button. The thread comes out on the side. Take the thread to the left side of the knife, down under, and now we've completed the upper looper threading. Okay, I'm going to use a smaller spool of thread to show you that you can take the adapter off, the cone adapter, put a regular spool of thread on, put your spool cap on top, like so. Bring the thread up and over the right needle thread guide, back down into our thread guide, floss again. Then we're going to go under the first thread guide right here, between here and under the white and up and around and over, and then back behind the thread guide here. And what it talks about for threading in our chart inside the front cover, we have already engaged our tubes, and then it says press the needle lever down to engage. And that is this lever right here is going to come down and we're going to engage. Place the end of the thread close to the eye of the needle and push the button. And the button we're referring to is right here. It says push to thread needles. So I'm going to just clean edge that thread. You can use your fingers. I sometimes use my tweezers. And I'm going to bring it right to the closeness. As I push and pull that up, it threads the eye of the needle for me, just like that. Okay? And all we have to do is raise the presser foot, take the thread under the foot, and it is now ready to go. Okay? All right. Now we're going to do our right needle, our left needle, and we'll go according to the chart. And by the way, one of the reasons I thread this up, because the chart, again, we'll talk about different colors of thread. So now you can get a visual as to how your chart represents the stitch, and you actually do it on a piece of fabric and it looks the same, which is kind of cool. All right, thread goes on to the left side, back over, like we've done before. Back flossing the thread again on the left side. Straight down, another catch, under, over the top and around. And now we're going to bring the thread through the thread guide again, just like the right needle. Lower our presser foot, engage, cut the thread, nice clean edge. Again, I just take my tweezers, put it near the eye of the needle, push the threader button, and it threaded for me. And take your tweezers, just grab that, raise the presser foot, bring the thread underneath the presser foot, and we've now completed threading for this machine. Next, we're going to go on and do a 4-thread stitch. Now we're going to do a 4-thread stitch, just like the chart shows, and we'll show you where we're going to be right here. Here's your 4-thread stitch. But before we do that, I want to mention, if you were to step on the foot control at this point, I'm stepping my foot on the controller, the machine's not going to go because the covers that we had open are not closed. So we're going to close this cover, and we're going to close this cover. And this is a common happening. I go to close this cover, and it just won't close. And what we need to do, and that is at the end here, step number 6, it says disengage the threading lever to serging position. So we're going to go from threading to serging. Now the cover will close and we're ready to go. Okay? Lower the presser foot. And I've got a little piece of fabric here. We'll just do the same. Ordinarily, we do right sides together, of course. And I'm not doing a sewing lesson today, but that's how you would serge. And on the front of the machine, just to the right of the needles, you have an L and an R gauge. What that is referring to is the L stands for the left needle, and from that, if you have the edge of your fabric at the L gauge, then it's going to produce a 5/8 of an inch seam allowance that is mostly common for most sewing needs. So here we're just going to put it at the L. We're going to run the machine. And when you get to the end, what you want to do on a serger is you want to continue to serge off of the fabric, and you'll get what we call a chain or a tail. And gently just pull to the rear. And here is the chain or tail that I'm referring to. And you recognize that when you buy store-bought clothing, sometimes they didn't trim that well enough. We also have a thread cutter located right behind, and if you bring your thread in and pull towards you, it does cut the thread for you. And it leaves the prescribed amount which you need, okay? So our 4-thread stitch, very nice seam. The neat thing about a 4-thread is it works predominantly for medium to heavier weight fabrics, corduroys, some cottons, but a little heavier. It's going to produce 2 rows of stitching, and the rows of stitching would be your left needle. That's the actual seam thread. So when you pull this apart, I'll show you here on this camera and this camera, that would be the red spool of thread. That's the actual needle thread that produces the seam. Then the green is going to produce another tight straight stitch next to the red, so you actually have 2 rows of stitching that are going to be very strong for a heavier type fabric. The yellow now is equal to our upper looper, and if you can see here on this sample, you'll see the yellow threads, and that upper stands for upper side of fabric, so that would be the top side of your fabric that would work for. Then the blue would be on the back side of the fabric, and that's the lower looper. So lower is lower side, right here, and upper is upper side, which is right here. Okay. So that gives that stitch a little more information on how it's constructed. All right, now what I'm going to do, this is a cool thing. You can actually gather with this machine. You can't gather very, very thick, heavy fabric, such as denim or maybe wool, but again, a cotton, and we're going to try this. This is a little heavier than a cotton. But simply all you have to do is you have to lengthen the stitch, and that would be the large knob below. And I'm going to put that on stitch length number 4. But we've got a feature over here that we've not talked about yet, and it's referred to as differential feed. I can illustrate that it starts at the lowest setting. If you push the lever all the way down, it's at 0.6. And for you to pull the lever all the way up, it's at 2, and that's 2 millimeters. So what we're going to do is set it at 2 millimeters and put 1 single ply of fabric in the machine. And as I start to sew, you can see it starts to gather. So it's a great way to ease in a sleeve or to a dust ruffle, what have you. But now you can see how it gathers for you almost automatically. Now there are accessories available for this machine, extra accessory fee. We have them here at the shop. And they do actually make a gathering foot or shearing foot, which will do more of that. Okay? All right, so don't forget though, anytime you, because I've forgotten many a time, if you do this task, that you want to put it back to the normal setting. There's a red N for normal. And I've learned if you push the lever all the way down to the bottom and you click up 2 times, that's the normal setting. All right? We're going to stop at this point and get the machine ready to show you a 3-thread stitch, which we predominantly use for a rolled hem. We're going to now show you how to do a 3-thread rolled edge. I've known it as a 3-thread rolled hem, one and the same. And on your quick thread reference chart, it will show you at the bottom the 3-thread rolled edge settings. So we're going to set the machine up a little differently than we did on the 4-thread. And let's just go over it. It's using the right needle, which means we're going to have to remove the left needle, and I'll show you. And the stitch length, it says 0.75 to 4 point, and it stands for R. Now the R is actually for rolled edge, is what that stands for. And on your stitch length setting, I'll show you that in just a second, how we're going to do that. The stitch width is 3, so it's a little bit less than normal. This stitch selector, and again, here's your selector, is on the letter D as in David. The wave selector is still located on the overlock setting, okay? So let's go ahead and start setting up the machine. The first thing I like to do is actually loosen, and inside your accessory kit, you will have a red-handled screwdriver. It's a 1.5 millimeter that is going to allow you to loosen the screw. Just put it in, make sure it's all the way in. And the L side, there's an L and an R on the needle clamp. To simply loosen the screw, and I leave it threaded because if you drop the screw, if you drop the needle, such as I'm going to simulate, it then is still attached by the thread so that the needle does not go down inside the machine. But Baby Lock is really clever because if the needle were to go down in the machine, there's a little handle right down here at the base of the machine. I hope you can see that. If you pull that out, what they've done is they put a magnet on this slide, and your needle should be located right there, okay? Which is kind of cool. So it would be attached to the magnet. You just take it off and put this slide back in, okay? We'll just leave it out for a moment. But this works really well. Now we're going to clip the thread, remove the needle, and I would suggest you turn the screw in just a little bit so it doesn't vibrate out, all right? Since we remove the left needle, we want to remove the left needle thread. So raise the presser foot. I usually clip it right here at the spool and then grab it here at the needle clamp and just pull the thread completely out. You can leave the spool on, it's not causing any harm. All right, so now we've got it set up for 3-thread. Our next is the selector on the length. And what we're going to do is this dial we're going to turn towards us, and it's going to go from standard position to, it says, rolled hem. And they're the same numbers, but you will note, if you look down at the numbers, there's kind of a dark gray background on top of the white numbers. And if you see that, then you realize you're in the rolled hem setting, right? I'm going to put it near the 1 mark, number 1. That's usually where we're going to be. Our stitch width that talked about is 3. So we're going to turn this towards us until we see 3, which is right here. Stitch selector is D. So we're going to take it from A all the way down to D. All right. And then our selector for the wave overlock, it stays at overlock. Now it is set up for a rolled hem, which is pretty cool. So again, 1 ply of fabric. Cotton works really well. We're going to lower the presser foot, simply run the machine. I would serge at a consistent speed. It does a much nicer rolled hem. Continue serging. Make a tail and cut. And now you've got an actual beautiful rolled hem. I've seen this in napkin edges. I'm sure there are some other applications, but napkin comes to my mind. All right? All right, after that, we're going to show a couple accessories that might be interesting to you. I'd like to point out that Baby Lock produces an inspirational guide for this model and other models as well. And I found it very, very, very helpful because it talks about threaded information, it talks about needle information, stitch formation. These are some of the things we touched on today. But then it actually gets into, for example, on page 81, the 3-thread rolled edge, lettuce edge. That's a type of stitch. You can kind of see it here in the photo. And creating a braid or trim, and it goes on so that you can do so much more with this machine. So this is available as an extra accessory or for purchase if you're interested. I wanted to also touch on the instruction book. On page 55 of the instruction book, it talks about, let me get it here, replacing needles, replacing cutting blades, and you know, if you're not comfortable with replacing the blade, I'll be more than happy to do it for you. There's never a charge for that. And cleaning, for example, and cleaning your machine. And I've been maintaining machines for a little over 50 years, and it's kind of goes back to my dad. Mom had the store before I did, and my father was always oiling the chain on my go-kart. And as a kid, I just want to go ride my go-kart. But now I totally understand why he maintained what he maintained. So maintenance is important, and if you want more information about that, you can let us know. And as always, if you would like more information regarding the use of your machine, techniques, that type of thing, maintenance, please give us a call. We're more than happy to help you at 719-596-1165. And thanks for watching. Have a great day.